In the heart of Sulawesi's shadowed mountains, where the corn whispers secrets to the night, I stood alone in a crumbling treehouse, rifle trembling in my grip. The fire below flickered like a dying heartbeat, and from the mist-shrouded field, something ancient and hungry stirred, its pale form rising, arms too long, eyes unseen but felt. One wrong breath, and it would climb. And this time, there'd be no escape. The cornfield had always been more than just land to us. It was a legacy, etched into the earth by generations of calloused hands. Tucked away in the rolling foothills of Sulawesi, Indonesia, a few hours north of our quiet village, it sat like a golden island amid the dense forest that clawed up the mountain slopes. The air up there carried a perpetual chill, laced with the earthy tang of damp soil and the sharp bite of pine resin drifting down from higher elevations. For as long as stories were told around our family table, we'd planted corn in that same stubborn patch. My grandfather had tended it before my father, and my father before me, each passing down the ritual of the harvest watch. Every year, when the stalks ripened to a shimmering gold and the wind swept through them like waves on a restless sea, one of us would take the vigil. Perched in the rickety treehouse through the long, star-pricked nights, we'd guard against the thieves of the wild boars with their rooting snouts and clever macaques that could strip a field bare under the cover of darkness. It was a simple duty, but one laced with the weight of survival. Lose the crop, and the family went hungry. This year marked a turning point for me. I'd just crossed into my 20s, and my father deemed it time I shouldered the responsibility alone. "It's your right now," he'd said, his voice gravelly from years of barking orders at the fields and at us kids. "Learn what it means to stand as a man." I nodded, chest swelling with a mix of pride and nerves, though deep down, a flicker of unease stirred. The village had been buzzing with whispers lately. Strange howls echoing from the woods, drags through the underbrush that sounded too deliberate for animals. And then there were the Nongjian boys, those kids who'd vanished over a month ago, swallowed by the forest without a trace. The day before I set out, I found my father on the porch, his machete singing against the whetstone in rhythmic scrapes. My younger brother had already headed off to school, leaving the house wrapped in an unusual hush that amplified every sound. "Pack extra batteries," he grunted without looking up, "and stay sharp. Don't doze off too soon. If you hear anything, holler loud." "I know, Dad. I'll handle it," I replied, trying to sound more confident than I felt. He paused then, the blade still in his lap, and fixed me with a shadowed gaze. "The dogs have been acting up at night. Won't go near the tree line. Something's got them spooked." I forced a laugh, waving it off. Village tales sprouted like weeds during harvest, ghost stories to keep the young ones in line. "You've asked me a dozen times if I want company. I'm good. Besides, with that ankle you'd slow me down." I nodded at the bandage swaddling his leg, a nasty fracture from a hit-and-run biker who'd vanished into the hills last month. His expression darkened. "They still haven't found those Nongjian boys." The words hung heavy, twisting my gut just a little. "Probably just lost, Dad. Kids do that. They'll turn up." I said it to steady us both, but the doubt lingered like fog. "Over a month out there? In those woods?" He shook his head. "Just promise me. Build a strong fire at dusk and keep it fed all night. It'll ward off beasts. And whatever else." "I promise," I muttered, though his insistent whisper sent a chill racing up my spine. Why the emphasis on the fire? But I let it go, packing my bag with essentials. Rice, dried fish, water bottles, Marlboro packs, my battered flashlight. I threw in my phone too, useless for calls with no signal, but handy for checking time or killing boredom with games. Last, I cleaned my hunting rifle, loaded it carefully, and slung it over my shoulder. Truth be told, part of me relished the solitude, the chance a boar might wander in, turning vigil into a hunt for fresh meat. I left before noon, the sun still warm on my skin, the air humming with the scent of pollen and turned earth. My old pickup rattled along the winding road out of the village, past terraced rice paddies and clusters of weathered wooden homes, until the pavement crumbled into gravel that crunched under the tires. The climb grew steeper, the engine protesting with low growls as I navigated the narrow twists, cliffs dropping away on one side. After nearly 2 hours, I parked at the trailhead amid a stand of pines, the engine ticking down to silence. Cicadas buzzed in the branches, and far off, a stream murmured like a hidden secret. From there, it was a hike. Up through pine-scented paths that dipped and rose, crossing a shallow stream where the water ran cold and clear over smooth stones. I paused there, dropping a line into the current, letting the chill numb my feet as I waited for a tug. That's when I spotted it, a faint gleam under the surface, winking like buried treasure. I reached in, fingers closing around cold metal. Pulling it free, I examined the rusted button, its fake gold flaking away, grooves worn smooth by time and water. A memory surged. Me as a boy, by this same stream with Dad, unearthing odd trinkets, faded fabric scraps, a bent bracelet, a chipped yo-yo, even a dull gold ring once. He'd always snatch them away, flinging them back into the flow with a scowl. "Leave that junk be, boy. Things wash down from the hills. Best not touch 'em." His tone had been sharp, almost fearful, but he'd never explained why. Now, holding this button, that old warning echoed louder. What was up there, in the northern reaches, that sent such relics downstream? I turned it over once more, then tossed it back, watching it vanish without a trace. Luck favored me soon after. I reeled in 2 decent mujair, their scales flashing silver. I gutted them on a flat rock, wrapping the fillets in broad taro leaves for roasting later. As I rinsed my hands, a sharp pinch drew my gaze downward. 3 bloated leeches clung to my skin between my toes, dark and glistening, swelling with my blood. "Shit!" I hissed, sitting to pry them loose. They resisted, bodies pulsing. Recalling Dad's trick, I sprinkled salt from my pack. They twisted, detached, and plopped back into the water, leaving bloody smears that swirled away. Gathering dry sticks and pine needles on the way back, their resin sticking to my palms, I followed the gully trail, a narrow scar of red clay and stones, fringed with ferns and wild grass. In rains it flooded fierce, but now it was dry, just damp spots exhaling musty earth. The path leveled near the field as the sky bled into copper dusk. The cornfield crowned a gentle knoll, stalks swaying in a golden sea around a central clearing. The treehouse perched on a gnarled trunk like a watchful guard, high enough for a view over the crop to the tree line, sturdy against mountain winds. Below, the stream widened, reeds dancing in the fading light. The air hummed with cicadas, scented by warmed corn and soil. Climbing up, I surveyed the familiar space, a worn mat, swaying lantern, wooden chest stuffed with blankets, pilfered church candles, torches. I cleaned the lantern meticulously, wiping grime from the glass until my reflection stared back, weary but determined. Trimming the wick, I filled it with kerosene and struck a match. The flame bloomed soft orange, banishing shadows. Next, I rigged the can clangers, a rope strung with rock-filled tins, one end at the forest edge, the other up to me. Taut above the stalks, a tug sent them rattling, a metallic alarm to scare intruders and echo warnings into the night. My father swore by it, said it reminded the woods you weren't alone. Fog crept in from the stream, threading through the rows like ghostly fingers. I unrolled my mat, the air turning damp and biting, my breath clouding faintly. That first night dragged in unnatural stillness. No cricket chirps, no frog croaks, just a heavy quiet that pressed like a weight. I chalked it up to incoming rain, clouds massing distant. But sleep came fitful, my mind replaying Dad's whispers about the fire. The next day dawned clear. I scoured the field for signs. No tracks, just unbroken gold ready for harvest. I'd reap by hand soon, filling sacks for the haul down. Midday heat drove me to the stream. I wove a rattan trap, anchoring it in the narrows, hoping for more mujair. The breeze carried pine and earth, everything deceptively peaceful. But the second night shattered that. Midnight jarred me awake to soft, purposeful steps in the field. Heart thudding, I thought bore. Groggy, I shuffled to the door, peering into the fire's glow. Stalks shifted in wind, but nothing visible. The steps halted. I yanked the clangers, cans clashed sharply. Waited, air thick, every noise amplified. Then it returned, rustling distant, circling. Flashlight beam pierced rose, but corn devoured the light. "Hey, who's there?" I bellowed, voice echoing lonely. A quicker rustle fled to the forest. Animal, I told myself, lying back. But sleep evaded, phantom whispers teasing the edges of hearing. Dawn inspection revealed broken stalks at the perimeter, bent waist high, not bore low. As if something tall had passed through upright. Unease coiled tighter. By the third night, tension gnawed at me. The air hung colder, oppressive. I sat legs dangling from the platform, rifle close, lantern dimmed for night vision. Moon veiled in clouds cast ghostly pallor. After meager dinner, cold rice, grilled fish, spicy sambal, I peeled a wild mango, its fibrous sweetness a small comfort. Then, at the field's edge, a shape materialized. Or did it? Moonlight tricked shadows into forms, but this stood tall, unnaturally so, mist-shrouded among trees. 30 meters off, head cocked as if listening. No face, just wavering outline. Wind stirred, obscuring. Then it seemed nearer. I rubbed eyes. Still there. The night held breath. I snatched flashlight, blinked, and it vanished. Stalks rippling briefly. Sleep fled entirely that night, mind racing with doubts. Morning tempted me home, but stubborn pride held. Trick of light, I rationalized. The day passed stuffing sacks under blistering sun, sweat stinging eyes. Then Rio's call echoed from the path. My cousin arrived with food, batteries, cigarettes. We chatted harvest banalities, shared smokes, him aiding the labor. I mentioned poor sleep, but omitted the shape. Didn't want mockery. Before leaving, he echoed Dad. Keep the fire blazing till dawn. Then, with a grin hiding gravity, he spun a tale of decades past horror. Political chaos birthed a massacre in the northern forest. Victims hacked, dumped in a ravine, men, women, children. Since that stretch stayed shunned. I scoffed, calling it scare tactics. But alone in the treehouse that night, his words festered. The button from the stream, river flowed from those cursed hills, relics downstream hinted at upstream sins. Dad's disgust at my childhood find suddenly clicked. He knew, had hidden something dark. By 9, fatigue pulled me under, phone glow fading as sleep took hold. Sounds roused me earlier, around 10. Jolt awake, chest constricted, anxiety crawling icy up my spine. Damp air reeked faintly metallic, drizzle tapping outside, chill biting skin before midnight. Rustle from field far side, closer next. Wind howled, but steps defied its cadence, calculated through sodden leaves. Lantern off, I crouched, peering through floor gaps. Movement in corn, tall, dark, gliding ethereal, slipping between stalks without bending. Then the odor assaulted, Cloying rot, sour decay like spoiled fruit in mud, underlaid by death's foulness. Nausea surged. I muffled gags with sleeve. Minutes ticked. Lost sight. Forest ink black, disorienting. Then creak, wood straining slow, horror dawned, fire extinguished. It was ascending. Ladder groaned, testing rungs deliberately. Pulse roared. Frozen, I listened. Another creak. Flashlight aimed out, beam caught mist, bark, swaying corn. Hands quaked, light dancing. Set it angled at ladder, seized rifle. Go away! Voice cracked. Groan again. I kicked ladder. Structure shook. Screamed curses till raw. Snapped. Trigger pulled. Boom deafened. Smoke acrid. Echo faded. Door slammed. Latched. Sat staring at dimming beam. Time stretching eternal. Rain resumed. Drowsy patter on tarp. Dozed despite terror. Woke to silence. Air cold. Soil iron scent. Lantern off. Peeked below. At tree base, something gazed up. No face, just slick, pale outline, arms dangling low, fingers grazing ground, head tilted, curious. Heavy breathing mingled with drips. Scrambled for rifle, looked again, gone. Panic relit lantern, glow feeble against void. Fire's importance hit hard, too fragile now. Vigil endured, rifle on lap, aimed at door. Flinched at every sound, snaps, birds, drips. Exhaustion taunted till dawn's light pierced. Post-sunrise, sleep crashed like oblivion. Stirred to cooling air, long shadows, near sunset. Disoriented, panic swelled. Too late for escape. It would intercept. Eyes on ladder, deep gouges, claw-marked as if scaled. Shaking, gathered fuel, piled near, ignited before dark. Flame crackled, sap earth sent. Prayed no rain, this blaze my shield. The entity, glimpsed close, now stirred, curious, ravenous, return inevitable. Sunset plunged forest to black. Fire roared, sparks dancing, heat sweating despite chill. Climbed up, latched door, sank to mat, rifle ready. Listened to crackles, whispers. Forced down stale rice, fish, fuel for survival. One night more, then flee at dawn. The silence at 2:15 a.m. felt like a physical force, crushing inward from all sides. My heartbeat thundered so loud it drowned out the dying crackle of the embers below. Sweat slicked my palms despite the biting cold. The rifle felt heavier than ever as I gripped it, knuckles white. I crept to the gap in the floorboards again, peering down. The fire I'd nursed so desperately was reduced to a pitiful glow, faint orange tongues licking the last blackened branches, sparks drifting upward like dying stars. Shadows twisted grotesquely across the clearing, the corn swaying in slow, hypnotic waves under the weak light. Movement flickered at the tree line. A shape, elongated, impossibly fluid, slid between the pines. Not walking exactly. Gliding, a living patch of darkness detached from the night, hovering just above the stalks, smoke-like tendrils curling and uncurling as it advanced. My breath caught. It moved with purpose, drawn toward the treehouse like iron to a magnet. Hands shaking violently, I fumbled the latch open and shoved the door wide. Cold air rushed in, carrying the faint, rotten sweetness of wet earth and decay. I raised the rifle, sighted down the barrel at the approaching form, and screamed into the void. "Leave me the fuck alone!" The first shot exploded outward, the recoil slamming into my shoulder. The bang rolled across the field, swallowed quickly by the trees. For a heartbeat, the thing paused, hesitated as if surprised. Then it continued, closer now, undeterred. Another shot. The bullet clipped high through the corn, rattling stalks in its wake. This time, the figure froze. The weak firelight caught it just enough to reveal more. Tall, lanky beyond human proportion, its edges fraying and swirling like thick black smoke given form. No distinct face, just a shifting void where one should be. Arms hung unnaturally long, fingers trailing like wisps of shadow. It didn't seem solid, yet it moved with terrible intent. Panic clawed up my throat. I spun, stumbled to the wooden chest, and yanked the lid open so hard it banged against the wall. Inside, musty blankets, stubby candles, the old makeshift torches, dried rags wrapped around broken chair legs. My fingers closed around them, trembling. I grabbed the kerosene tin next, sloshing liquid everywhere in my haste. The sharp, oily reek filled the small space, stinging my eyes. A match snapped uselessly against the box, then the second flared bright and angry. I lit the first torch. Flame roared to life along the rag. Staggering to the doorway, I stared out at the swaying field, the dark shape now halfway across the clearing. Without thinking, I hurled the torch downward. It arced through the air and landed with a soft whump, flames leaping instantly to the dry stalks nearby. Shadows lurched and danced as fire spread in hungry tongues. I lit another, then another, throwing them frantically, toward the path, toward the thickest rows, toward the thing itself. Each impact birthed new blazes, sparks showering like angry fireflies. The final torch I soaked until it dripped, struck the match, and flung it with every ounce of strength. The torch struck ground near the shadowy mass. Dry corn ignited with a whoosh. Within seconds, flames raced outward in a roaring ring encircling the clearing. Thick black smoke billowed upward, choking the stars, swallowing the figure from view. For one dizzying moment, triumph surged, until reality crashed in. The fire wasn't just a barrier. It was everywhere. Heat slammed against me like a wall. Smoke burned down my throat with every breath. The treehouse platform grew hot under my feet. Sparks rained onto the tarp roof, sizzling where they landed. I'd turned my sanctuary into a trap. The blaze roared louder, devouring stalks in crackling fury. I couldn't stay up here. The smoke would kill me before the flames ever reached. No time to think. I swung my legs over the edge, gripped the ladder, then jumped. I hit the ground hard. Pain exploded in my right ankle as it twisted under me with a sickening pop. A white-hot lance shot up my leg. I bit back a scream, collapsing to one knee. The world blurred through smoke and tears. Flames encircled me in every direction, a roaring orange prison. Heat seared my skin, ash stung my eyes. Each inhale scorched my lungs. "Good one, idiot," I thought bitterly. "You just built your own pyre." Then, through the chaos, a faint, sweet scent cut through the smoke. Grilled corn. It hit like a memory dragged from childhood. Summer evenings in this very field, Dad tending a small fire while my brother and I laughed, passing ears slathered in melted cheese, the smoky sweet aroma clinging to our shirts. For a fleeting second, the inferno didn't feel like death. It felt like home. I turned my head right, squinting through the haze. Beyond the wall of fire, the narrow dirt path snaked out of the clearing, down the knoll toward the stream. If I could reach it, if I could reach water, I might survive. My ankle throbbed viciously, but fear drowned the pain. I staggered upright, limping forward, dragging the ruined leg. Sparks landed on my sleeves, my hair. I slapped them away frantically. The roar filled my skull, drowning my own ragged breaths. I broke into a desperate, hobbling run. The world dissolved into orange and black. I threw one arm across my face, shielding eyes and mouth, and hurled myself at the flames. Heat slammed into me like a fist. Fabric crackled. The stench of burning cotton and singed hair choked me. Pain seared across my arms, my scalp. I screamed. Not terror this time, but raw agony, and tumbled out the other side. I rolled instinctively across the ground, crushing dry stalks beneath me, smothering embers on my clothes. Vision swam. Smoke clogged my throat. Coughing violently, I forced myself up. Half limping, half crawling, I followed the path downward. The hill seemed endless. Every step sent fresh lightning through my ankle. Ribs ached from the fall. Blood and ash coated my tongue. But below, faint, steady, the stream murmured like a promise. I pushed harder, slid on loose dirt, tumbled through broken corn, rolling uncontrollably until cold water swallowed me whole. The hiss of extinguished flames on my skin sent up bursts of steam. I lay there gasping, half submerged, letting the current numb the worst of the burns. Alive. Somehow. Impossibly. But not safe yet. Gritting my teeth, I dragged myself upright. Every movement was torture, ankle swollen, ribs stabbing with each breath, skin raw and blistered. My hand brushed the truck keys still clipped to my belt loop. They jingled softly, a tiny, absurd sound of hope. The distant glow of the fire lit the overgrown trail enough to follow. I limped onward, each step agony, until the pickup loomed in the pine shadows. Climbing in took everything I had. I slid the key home. The engine coughed, then roared. The vibration rattled through my battered body, and relief crashed over me so hard I nearly sobbed. I drove slowly down the winding road, headlights cutting through pre-dawn dark. Bumps jarred broken bones, but the promise of home pulled me forward. I didn't bother turning into the yard. I stopped on the shoulder in front of the house, killed the engine, and staggered out. The living room light glowed warm. I hammered the door 3 times, then my legs gave out. I collapsed to my knees on the gravel. When awareness returned, I was in a hospital bed. IV lines snaked into my arms. An oxygen mask pressed cool against my face. My father's face hovered above me, eyes red-rimmed, hand trembling as he brushed my cheek. The first words out of my cracked lips were apologies for the field. He shook his head gently. "Doesn't matter, son. You're here. That's all." The damage was worse than I'd felt in the moment. Fractured shin and ankle, 2 broken ribs, dislocated shoulder, hands lacerated and stitched, burns across arms, back, scalp. They shaved away the charred ends of my hair to treat the blisters underneath. 2.5 weeks later, the doctors cleared me. Dad brought clean clothes, loose shirt, soft pants that wouldn't chafe bandages, and drove me home. The house felt both familiar and foreign, my room rearranged for easy movement, bed nearer the window, sturdy chair beside it. Dad hovered constantly, helping me stand, fetching water, watching me with quiet worry. Nights were hardest. Pain throbbed in waves. I'd wake sweating, convinced I smelled smoke or heard creaking wood. Echoes of fire haunted my dreams. Sometimes I screamed myself awake, drenched, panic crushing my chest as if something stood beside the bed, watching. Dad always came running, calm on the surface, shaken underneath, gripping my shoulders until the terror ebbed. He never asked what happened. I never told him. Some horrors are too heavy to speak. Recovery stretched ahead, months, maybe more, before I'd walk without a limp or lift without wincing. But home's warmth, clean air, morning light filtering through curtains made the sterile hospital feel distant. The field was gone. Blackened earth, charred stumps, ash where gold once stood. No crop to sell, maybe none next season. Guilt gnawed deeper than any fracture. I'd failed the legacy. Dad insisted it didn't matter, that no harvest outweighed a son's life. I nodded, but the ache remained. Rio and villagers returned during my hospital stay. Nothing salvageable. Rifle melted, phone fused, chest a twisted ruin, but scattered in the ash. Torn clothing scraps, dented bracelets, rusted necklaces, buttons, a charred yo-yo fragment. Familiar. Like the river finds. No bodies, just objects. I knew why. That final moment forcing through flames, I'd seen it clearly amid smoke and firelight. The thing wasn't one shadow. Inside its swirling mass, long dark hands clawed outward, twisting, bending at impossible angles, reaching, writhing, fighting to escape, or to seize me. And the screams. High, distorted, whistling through broken glass. Men, women, children. Their cries rose above the roar, piercing, unearthly, until the night itself wailed. They'd been there all along, trapped, waiting.